Hey, everybody, and welcome to day one of this year's One School, One Book program. This year, our story is Adventure According to Humphrey. This is a shorter book than we've had the last couple years, so this year we're actually going to get it done in 6 days. We're going to start tonight on Sunday night, and the last night it's going to actually be on Friday. So tune in every night, and you can hear a guest reader read the chapters for you. All right, so this story is about a classroom pet hamster and the adventures he gets to go on with his classroom. He's actually a really good listener. He's really good at trying to figure out issues with friendships. He's really good at trying to figure out bullying and other things that kind of happen in life. He wants us to learn how to be kind. He really wants us to use our imaginations, and he wants us to think how our actions affect other people. Now, we have to remember, this is according to Humphrey, so all the story is going to be from the point of view of a hamster. So you're going to hear things in the story, and you have to just remember, this is not a person. This is how the hamster is perceiving what is going on. So he's going to be in a hamster wheel thinking, and he doesn't necessarily know everyone's name. It's going to be what the teacher calls them. And we'll see right away in chapter 1 that she calls some of the kids, like Wait for the Bell, Garth. That's not his real name. Garth is, I'm assuming, his name, but he must have troubles waiting for the bell. So remember, just while we go through it, that this is all through the point of view of the hamster, okay? So here we go. Adventures According to Humphrey by Betty Bierney. If you have your copy nearby, which you all should because you had them sent home with you last Wednesday, you can grab it and follow along, okay? Chapter 1 says, we set sail for the library. Guess what I did this weekend? Heidi Hopper blurted out one sunny Monday morning. As usual, my friends in room 26 of Longfellow School had come back to class with wonderful stories about what they had done over the weekend. Raise your hand, Heidi, please, said Mrs. Brisbane. She must be the teacher. Heidi had been better about speaking out of turn lately, but she still slipped up once in a while. After all, she is only human. When Heidi raised her hand, Mrs. Brisbane asked, "Okay, what did you do this weekend?" "Well, we went on a hike to a cave and waded through an underground stream," Heidi proudly explained. "I was so amazed, I almost fell off my wheel." That's what happens when you stop spinning too quickly. A cave and an underground stream? Now that sounds like an adventure. "Ooh, sounds like quite an adventure," Mrs. Brisbane agreed. Then she noticed all the other hands waving in the air. "It looks as if a lot of you had adventures." Oh, yes, they had. Lower your voice, AJ. And waiting for the bell, Garth had gone bicycling. Miranda Golden, who I think of as Golden Miranda because she's an almost perfect human, she visited the zoo where many large and scary animals live. Sit Still Seth had gone horseback riding. "I had Humphrey on my house," I heard that Kirk Chen proudly announce. "We had an amazing time. Right, Richie?" "What?" asked Repeat It Please Richie Rinaldi. "With Humphrey at my house," Kirk repeated. "Yes." Richie reached across the aisle and high-fived Kirk. It was true. I had a great weekend at Kirk's. I got to watch TV and listen to people talk. Richie came over too. But whenever he and Kirk did something fun, like go outside to fly a kite or toss the ball around, they left me behind. I know that small, furry creatures don't usually do things like that, but as a classroom hamster who goes home with a different student each weekend, I must admit I sometimes feel a little left out. After all, I'm always ready to help my friends, or even my teacher or principal, solve a problem. It would be nice if they'd let me share in their adventures, too. Don't get me wrong, people have been very nice to me, but ever since the day I left the pedorama and came to room 26, I've been trying to understand human behavior. It's interesting, and it hasn't been easy. I am luckier than Og the Frog, who is the other classroom pet. He doesn't need to be fed as often as I do, and he usually spends weekends alone in room 26. He doesn't seem to mind, but then it's not easy to understand frog behavior either. While I was thinking about my friend's adventures, I lost track of what was happening in class for a moment. Mrs. Brisbane was giving us our new vocabulary words for the week, and oh, what words they were! Beautiful words like nautical and treasure and squall, which Mrs. Brisbane said was a violent gust of wind. They were the best vocabulary words I'd heard since I started school back in September, and I quickly jotted them down in the tiny notebook I keep hidden behind my mirror in my cage. Miss Mack, the substitute teacher who first brought me to room 26, gave me the notebook before she moved to far-off Brazil. No one else knew I had it. No one knew that I had learned to read or write either. My fellow classmates seemed to enjoy the vocabulary words too. Kirk, who was the class clown, shouted out, "Squall! Squall!" Then he took a deep breath, puffed out his cheeks, and loudly blew out all the air like a big gust of wind. "Stop giggling, Gale!" Morgenstern giggled, but just about everything made her laugh. The words reminded me of a pirate movie we watched at Kirk's house. Some of the pirates were scary, but it was exciting to see big ships with their sails flying in the wind. How I'd love to feel the sea breeze ruffling through my fur and to hear the pirates saying things like "Avast, matey," and "Land ho!" I'm not sure what those things mean, but they sound thrilling. To top it all off, the pirates were fighting with each other over buried treasure. I sometimes hide food to save for the future, but the pirates hid gold and silver and shiny jewels. Buried treasure sounds like the most wonderful thing on earth. I do manage to have adventures of my own, especially when I escape from my cage. I can easily do that because it has a lock that doesn't lock. It looks firmly closed, but I can jiggle it open, get out of my cage to help my friends, and return without anyone even knowing it. Most of my exploits have been in houses, apartments, or in room 26. But now that I'd been around humans for a while, I longed for bigger adventures. Lower your voice, AJ must have read my mind. How does he do that? "Mrs. Brisbane, can we put Humphrey in his hamster ball?" he yelled out. "AJ, did I call on you?" Mrs. Brisbane asked. "Sorry," said AJ, lowering his voice. "But may we, please?" Our teacher glanced over at my cage. "I guess he would like a break from his cage," she said. Maybe she could read my mind too. Although I hadn't had my hamster ball for long, I loved rolling up and down the aisles of room 26. You can learn a lot from studying the floor of a classroom. You can find out who's messy, Richie and Mandy, or who's twitchy, that'd be Seth or Art. You can even find out who's growing the fastest by seeing whose jeans are a little short. That would be Garth and Saya. That day, I rolled up and down the aisles of room 26 at a relaxing pace. The good thing is, I can go where I want to unless Mrs. Brisbane stops me. The bad thing is, it's a little harder to hear inside the ball, especially when I'm daydreaming about adventures. Especially adventures on a boat, in the water, on the ocean, Mrs. Brisbane said, and I heard her quite clearly. In the library, she added. Maybe I didn't hear her clearly after all. I knew that oceans were very, very, very large bodies of water, and I knew that the library was a place where my friends went to get books. In truth, I've never seen an ocean, or the library, even though there was one right down the hall. A library, that is. There was no ocean at Longfellow School, at least as far as I knew. As I rolled up the aisle to hear better, I saw Mrs. Brisbane look at her watch. There's a big clock on the wall, but Mrs. Brisbane still checked her watch a lot. "It's time to go right now," she announced. I wasn't sure whether she was going to the ocean or the library, or maybe both places, but I was sure that I wanted to go too. "Mr. Fish will be waiting," she added. Mr. Fish? She must be talking about the ocean. I speeded up my hamster ball, spinning my way right up to Miss Brisbane's feet. Me too, I squeaked. Mrs. Brisbane looked down at me. Because my hamster ball is yellow, she looked all yellow too. Everyone did. Not you, Humphrey, she told me. You'll have to go back to your cage. There was a loud groan from my classmates. I think every single one of them groaned. Oh, we can't take Humphrey to the library. What would he do? Mrs. Brisbane insisted. Miranda, dear golden Miranda, raised her hand and the teacher called on her. He wouldn't hurt anything, she said. He could stay in his hamster ball. Wait for the bell, Garth Tugwell spoke up too. He's never been to the library before. Very well, said Mrs. Brisbane. Just keep an eye on him. And that was it. As Garth picked up my hamster ball, I realized that Og would be left behind. And since he spends a lot of time in water, he'd probably enjoy meeting someone called Mr. Fish too. Sorry you can't come, Og, I squeaked. I wasn't sure if he could hear me through the hamster ball. Also, Og doesn't have any ears that I can see, although he seems to hear just fine. My friends lined up and marched down the hall toward the library. You have to be quiet in the library, Humphrey Dumpty, AJ bellowed, and you can't check out books without a card. I was too busy trying to stay upright to figure out what kind of card I needed. I know Garth tried to hold the ball steady, but it was a bumpy trip. Even if I felt a little queasy and uneasy, it was well worth the trouble because the library was a huge room lined with colorful shelves. I love books, especially the ones that Mrs. Brisbane reads to us. Although she can be serious as a teacher, when she reads, she becomes a new person with all kinds of different voices that make my whiskers wiggle and my fur stand on end. Sorry we're late, Mr. Fish, she said. At least I think that's what she said. We brought along another member of our class. Humphrey, she added. Suddenly I saw a large pair of round eyes surrounded by a large pair of round glasses peering down at me. So this is the famous Humphrey, Mr. Fish exclaimed. Welcome to the library. Thanks, I replied politely, although I know all he heard was squeak, squeak, squeak. Mr. Fitch, the librarian, he continued. Oh, so it was Fitch, not Fish. But he looked a little bit like a fish with his big round eyes and large round mouth. Then there was that shirt with the black and white stripes, and all the blue water behind him. What was all that blue water doing in the library? Was this an ocean after all? Humphrey, look at all the fishies! Lower your voice, AJ shouted from his loudest voice. Garth held my hamster ball up, and when I stopped swaying from side to side, I saw lots and lots of blue water filled with lots and lots of fish. It's an aquarium, AJ explained. An aquarium, Mr. Fitch corrected him in a kind voice. A home for fish. Oh, yes, it was quite a home for fish. There were orange fish, silvery fish, fish with black and white stripes like Mr. Fitch's shirt, big fish, little fish, and more. There was even a tiny boat lying at the bottom of the aquarium, which started me wondering just whose boat it was and what happened to the owner. The ship was small, about the right size for a hamster, but it didn't look very seaworthy. What had happened to make it sink? Was it an accident? Bad weather? Not too likely in the library. Or was it pirates? What do you think, Humphrey? Mr. Fitch asked. I squeaked. It just slipped out. Actually, I was thinking that I'd like to be out of the hamster ball so I could see better. But I was lucky to be in the library at all, so it wouldn't be polite to complain. Hey, Humphrey, Kirk leaned down close to the ball. Why did the fish go to the library? I knew it was one of Kirk's jokes, but I didn't have an answer, so I just squeaked politely. To find some bookworms, Kirk gleefully answered. Oh, I squeaked, even though I wasn't quite sure that books had worms in them unless they were a book about worms. Okay, folks, gather round, Mr. Fitch told my classmates. We have a lot to do today. As my friend sat on the floor, Garth gently set me down near him so I could start rolling my way around the room. And that's when I got a better look at something even more amazing than the fish. Books. Red, blue, green, yellow, pink, and purple books. Big, thick books and tall, thin books. Shelves of books all the way to the ceiling. Racks and stacks of books everywhere else. I didn't know that there were so many books in the whole wide world, yet here they all were in one big room in Longfellow School. I tried to make a sudden stop as one book caught my attention because of the pirate on the cover and the pirate flag. It was hard to make out the title from behind the yellow plastic. Jolly Roger's Guide. Attention, please, Mrs. Brisbane said in her most attention-getting teacher voice. I rolled a little closer so I could see or hear what she was saying. A test, she said. Oh my, we were going to take a test and I didn't have my little notebook and pencil with me. No one had even mentioned a test before we came to the library. I still couldn't hear very well, but I did hear Mr. Fitch say, "What floats?" This didn't sound like a spelling test or a math quiz. I rolled to the front of the group, staring up at the aquarium for a closer look. Yes, Mandy, Mr. Fitch said. I couldn't see her, but she must have raised her hand. Mr. Fitch, I think we should take Humphrey out of the hamster ball so he can have some fresh air. Oh, my, what a nice girl Mandy was. I used to think her name was Don't Complain Mandy Payne, but she hardly ever complained anymore. That's a good idea, Mrs. Brisbane said. I was thinking about what my hamster would like, Mandy replied with pride in her voice. She did have a very fine hamster, thanks to me. And if I was let out of my ball, I could roam freely and get a closer look at all the beautiful books. Here, Mr. Fitch said as Kirk opened the ball, put him in this. This turned out to be a little square in his desk, surrounded by books. Because the desk was lower than the aquarium, I had a good view of what Mr. Fitch was doing. Class, Mr. Fitch is going to teach or let us use his tank to do some tests to figure out what floats and what doesn't, and why, Mrs. Brisbane explained. I stood up on my hind legs to get a better look. Although the world wasn't yellow anymore, I had absolutely no idea what floats. But I knew something that didn't. That little hamster-sized boat at the bottom of the tank. If ye be seeking adventure, matey, the only place to look be the high seas. From Jolly Roger's Guide to Life. Okay, and that was chapter 1. Let's flip over to chapter 2, which is titled Sink or Swim. Here is what I learned. A wood block is heavier than a plastic bottle cap. But which one floats? Both. A piece of aluminum foil isn't nearly as heavy as a block of wood, but when you roll it up into a ball, it drops to the bottom of the water like the small sunken ship. A ball of clay sinks like a great big shipwreck. When you spread the foil out in the shape of a little boat, it floats. Although I'm not sure I'd try sailing in it. And by golly, when you spread the clay out into a little boat, it floats too. We learned quite a few things then. I saw it all with my own little hamster eyes, but when Mrs. Brisbane asked why the foil and the clay boats floated when the balls didn't, I was squeakless. So were my friends. Come on, try a guess, then, Mr. Fitch said in an encouraging voice. What was the question again? Asked Pay Attention Art Patel. Why did the foil and the clay boats float, but the balls didn't? Mrs. Brisbane patiently repeated. Art shrugged. You look like you have an idea, Mr. Fitch said to speak up, Saya. I stood up extra high on my tiptoes to see my shy friend. Well, she said in a soft voice, I think it's because it's spread out and there's more water underneath it to hold the weight. Leave it to Saya to say something so clever. I was so glad she wasn't too shy to speak up anymore. Bingo, said Mr. Fitch. Even though I thought bingo was a dog in a song, I knew he was telling her that it was the right answer. It just had to be. There was more to whether something floats or not than just how much it weighs. Once again, I'd learned something new, which is the amazing thing about school. Let's try some more stuff, said Heidi without raising her hand again. I thought it was great idea, but suddenly a loud voice did that, oh my goodness. But suddenly a loud voice that did not belong to AJ said, "Excuse me for interrupting. I need to check the temperature." I recognized that voice right away. It was big, and it was bossy. It was, of course, the voice of Mrs. Wright. Who else but Mrs. Wright would be checking the temperature of the library? It wasn't even sick. "Is something wrong, Mrs. Wright?" the librarian asked. "I believe the temperature control is not working properly. The new chairperson of the Committee for School Property, I need to keep track," she said. Mrs. Wright taught physical education at Longfellow School. Thank goodness she didn't teach in room 26. In physical education, they played all kinds of games and sports, and they have rules. Mrs. Wright loved rules. Mrs. Wright loved her whistle, and Mrs. Wright did not love me. "Come on in," Mr. Fitch said. Mrs. Wright scurried across the room in her puffy white shoes. She headed for the temperature control on the wall, but before she reached it, her puffy white shoes stopped right in their tracks next to the edge of my table. "What is it doing in here?" she asked huffily. "It?" said Mr. Fitch. "What's an it?" It was pretty clear what it Mrs. Wright was talking about. She was staring right at me. "The rat," she said. Mrs. Brisbane quickly corrected her. "Hamster." "Whatever," Mrs. Wright replied. "He doesn't belong in the library." Mr. Fitch smiled. "Because he's not a book?" "Because he's out of his cage. It's unsanitary. What about his waste? Where will that go?" It was very quiet in the library until suddenly Kirk laughed. "She means poo," he said. The word poo started the rest of the class laughing out loud. Heidi and Gail giggled. Kirk and Richie rolled their eyes and elbowed each other. Even Miranda and Saya chuckled. But Mr. Fitch bit his lip, while Mrs. Brisbane shook her head. "My poo is just part of life, but for some reason it makes children giggle. And it sometimes makes grown-ups nervous. I don't know why, because I keep my poo far, far, far away from my food and everything else in my cage. In my view, you wouldn't find a cleaner animal than a hamster." Mrs. Brisbane took 2 steps towards Mrs. Wright. "What waste?" she said. "I don't see any waste." "You know," said Mrs. Wright. "Weren't you here to check the temperature?" asked Mrs. Brisbane, looking Mrs. Wright right in the eyes. "It does feel a little chilly in here." That caught Mrs. Wright off guard. "Really? I thought it was a little warm," she said, hurrying towards the temperature control. While Mrs. Wright fiddled with the control, Mrs. Brisbane continued talking to us. "We're returning to room 26 now, but we'll be coming back soon because Mr. Fitch will be helping us with the new unit we're beginning," she said. "I'll tell you about it later today." Surprisingly, Saya raised her hand. Mrs. Brisbane called on her right away. "Could we please check out some books?" she asked in her sweet, soft voice. Mrs. Brisbane and Mr. Fitch exchanged looks. Then they both nodded. "Okay," said Mr. Fitch. "You got 10 minutes." Did you ever cross your fingers and hope for something special? I don't actually have fingers, so I closed my eyes and crossed my toes, both sets, and made a wish. Wishes are funny. Most of the time, they don't come true. Sometimes they come true and later you wish they hadn't. But once in a while, you make a wish and it happened, and it's a good thing. That's what happened in the library. I wished that Mrs. Brisbane would pick the pirate book about Jolly Roger. I couldn't check it out because I don't have a library card. And do you know what? She did. "Yes, yes, yes," I explained as Garth carried me out in my hamster ball. I was so happy that when I saw Mrs. Wright leaning in, over the temperature control as I left, she didn't even worry me. Not very much anyway. My next wish came true after lunch when Mrs. Brisbane began reading that book to us. The full title was Jolly Roger's Guide to Life, and it was about a boy and a girl named Violet and Victor who are sent to spend the summer with their mysterious uncle, J.R. You can imagine their surprise and mine when he turned out to be a pirate called Jolly Roger, and he decides to teach them to be pirates too. Then they set sail to find lost pirate treasure. My fur tingled and I was hanging on every word when the teacher suddenly closed the book. The other students groaned, and I was unspeakably disappointed until Mrs. Brisbane said she wanted to tell us exciting news. "Oh, Og, did you hear that?" I squeaked with delight. "Exciting news!" "Boing," my neighbor answered in his odd, twangy voice that green frogs like him have, but he didn't sound particularly excited. "The reason we talked about what floats is that tomorrow we'll start a project about sailing," she said. "We'll be doing sailing problems in math and science, and then you'll start building your own model sailboats." My friends all murmured excitedly while Mrs. Brisbane paused and then cleared her throat. 3 weeks from tomorrow, if the weather is good, we'll go to Potter's Pond for a contest to see which of your sailboats can get across the water first. We'll have a picnic and prizes and maybe hidden treasure, she said. Potter's Pond, picnic, prizes, treasure? My heart pounded at the possibilities, and my classmates' cheers were almost deafening. "What are the prizes?" Heidi asked. "Raise your hand, Heidi," Mrs. Brisbane answered. "The prizes will be a surprise." My friends groaned again, and I let out a bit of a squeak myself. By afternoon, Mrs. Brisbane had written the rules for the sailboat contest on the chalkboard. Each student will work with a partner. Number 2. The boat must be powered by the wind. No batteries or remote controls can be used. Number 3. All students will be given the same materials for their boat, but they will be allowed to add one item of their choosing, except batteries. Number 4. Materials will include wood, cardboard, cloth, paint, glue, markers, and other art supplies. Number 5. The first boat to make it from the starting point to the opposite shore of Potter's Pond will win the grand prize for most seaworthy. Number 6. There will be a prize for the most beautiful boat. At the end of the day, my friends were still chattering away about sailboats as they rushed out of class. Once the coast was clear, I shouted to my neighbor, "Og, did you hear that? She said all students. I wonder if—" I didn't dare finish that thought. Most of the time, I did everything my friends in room 26 did, like taking tests and learning new things. Sometimes we even had games or parties, and I was right there with the rest of them. But sometimes I was left out. Recess, lunch, PE, field trips. Still, I could hope. I was so busy hoping that I didn't realize it was nighttime until the door flew open. The lights came on, and a familiar voice said, "Give a cheer, because Aldo's here." "Greetings, Aldo," I answered as he wheeled in his cleaning cart. "Did you hear about the wonderful contest?" As usual, all that came out was squeak, squeak, squeak. I'm not sure if he understood me, but as he cleaned the room, he noticed the vocabulary words on one chalkboard and the rules for the contest on the other. "Ooh, so that's what you're worked up about, Humphrey," he said with a hearty laugh. "I'd like to be a part of that." "Me too," I answered, and Nog splashed wildly. "That gives me a great idea," Aldo announced. I waited breathlessly for him to say more. Instead, he started sweeping up the aisles of the classroom. Occasionally, I'd hear him chuckle, but I had no idea what he was thinking. "Squeak up," I finally insisted. "You'll see," Aldo answered. "All in good time." "What was that about?" I asked Og after Aldo was gone. "Boing, boing," Og replied. Then he leaped into the water side of his tank. While he was splishing and splashing, I daydreamed about life on the open sea, riding the waves, going up and down and up and down. I stopped thinking about that when my tummy got a little queasy. If I had a boat, I could sail the 7 seas. I could sail anywhere in the world. I could even sail to far-off Brazil, where Miss Mac lived. Miss Mac! She was my first human friend, and what a friend she was! She was full of life with her bouncy black curls and her big, happy smile, her large, dark eyes. She was also adventurous. She took me on a bike ride once, and at night she liked to play the bongo drums. Life with Miss Mac was the best. Then she broke my heart when Mrs. Brisbane came back to room 26, and Miss Mac left for Brazil. A broken heart hurts a lot. Sure, she sent us letters and pictures, but it wasn't like seeing her every day. At first, I didn't think I'd ever speak to her again, but by now, my heart wasn't exactly broken. It was just sprained. And I'd be glad, glad, glad if I could see her again. I don't think Miss Mac meant to break my heart. I do think Miss Mac would be glad to see me again, too. Funny how a book about pirates gets you thinking about all kinds of crazy things, even love. There'll be treasure aplenty in the deep, if ye dare look. From the Jolly Rogers Guide to Life. And that is the end of chapter 2 and the end of the reading for tonight. I hope you guys enjoyed it, and I hope you tune in tomorrow to see who's reading to you tomorrow. Have a great night.